It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Cincinnati Reds. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Saturday evening to you, wherever you may be. Dodgers and Reds, Game 3 of the 4-game series. Dodgers 2.5 games in front of the Giants. By the way, the Giants play tonight. Gio Gonzalez on the mound for Washington. Shut the Dodgers down for 8 innings the other day. And for the Giants, Jake Peavy will be on the mound. Cincinnati, they're 22.5 games behind St. Louis. This is the year they're trying to rebuild. Neither team is playing very well. Dodgers have lost 5 out of 8, and the Reds have lost 7 out of 10. On the mound for Cincinnati, for the 17th start in a row, another rookie pitcher by the name of Daniel Holmberg. He's a left-hander with a record of 1-1. He beat Pittsburgh. He lost to San Diego. In 3 starts, he's averaged 2 runs a game and going 5 innings in each start. So another young left-hander heading to the mound for the Reds. For the Dodgers, the veteran left-hander, Brett Anderson, with a record of 6-7, lost his last time out to Washington. And for Brett Anderson, if he's on his game, well, 66% of the batted balls figure to be on the ground. On a note, would be the 2 hottest hitters down on the field. Joey Votto hitting .438, and he has 6 RBIs in the last 4. Brandon Phillips, 11 RBIs in the last 15. So you got a good ball game and a whole lot more coming up right after this. To you, wherever you may be. Dodgers and Reds, game 3 of the 4-game series. Battle of left-handers. The youngster, David Holmberg, the rookie, and the veteran, Brett Anderson. Brett Anderson comes in with a record of 6-7. No record against the Reds, one of 3 teams he has never faced. The other 2, the Dodgers and the Mets. And for Brett Anderson, one of the things you have to remember, in the last 3 years, he had a total of 123 innings. And this year, he's already pitched just about 129. So Anderson getting ready to face the Reds, a ball club that's 2 games above 500 at home and 14 under 500 on the road. They read this way: Brandon Phillips at second base, Eugenio Suarez at short, Joey Votto at first, Todd Frazier at third. Then you have Marlon Byrd in right, Ivandi Jesus in left field, Brian Pena the catcher, David Holmberg the pitcher hitting 8th all the time for Brian Price, and Billy Hamilton the will-o'-the-wisp in center field batting 9th. So Brett Anderson getting ready. A couple of things to keep in mind about Brett. This year, he has a lot of trouble with the number 3 hitter. Well, the number 3 hitter is usually the best hitter in the lineup. The number 3 hitter is batting .421 against him, and the number 3 hitter is Joey Votto tonight. But, of course, it's no walk in the park when you face the leadoff man, Brandon Phillips. Brandon Phillips is much better on the road than he is at home, hitting .316 on the road, .255 on the road. He's had a big month of August, batting .353. In fact, that's been the best month of his career. He averages just under 300 this month, and Brandon takes a strike, and we're underway. 0-1. No balls and 1 strike to Brandon. It is 90 degrees as the ball game gets started tonight here at Dodger Stadium. And the next pitch, ground ball up the middle. Rollins flashing, has to double clutch, but plenty of time, and throws him out. So 1 away. We can take a look at the Dodgers with the leather. It's Gonzalez, Hernandez, Rollins, and Turner. Crawford, Peterson, and Puig. Ellis handling Anderson. Little surprised to see Crawford in left field. Scott Van Slyke is under the weather, and so Crawford makes a start against the left-hander. So Phillips taps out, 1 away, and the batter now, Eugenio Suarez, the shortstop, and he takes a strike. Suarez having a good series, started with 2 doubles and a home run in game 1, takes another strike, and the count 0-2. Last night they kept him quiet by walking him twice, and he wound up going 1 for 2. He takes one at his right foot, and the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, as we mentioned at the outset, if Brett Anderson is on his game, you're going to see a lot of ground balls. The 1-2 pitch, a little tapper up along third. Anderson down to get it, fires, and it's in time. Nice play by Brett, having to go all the way to the line to make the play. 2 down, 66% of all batted balls against Brett Anderson will be on the ground. In direct contrast will be the young left-hander Holmberg, who is a fly ball pitcher, so it'll be interesting, especially in the heat, where the ball really carries well here at Dodger Stadium. 2 down, first inning, and now here he is, Joey Votto. Votto hitting .433 the last few games. Big swing, doesn't get it. 0-1 the count. There are 5 active players who have career batting averages of at least .310. Miguel Cabrera, Ichiro Suzuki, Joe Mauer, Albert Pujols, and Joey Votto. Joey takes another strike, and the count 0-2. Votto batting .305, 21 home runs, 57 runs batted in, and the strike 2 pitch down and away. Votto in last night's ball game doubled in a run in the first inning, hit a 2-run homer in the 6th, wound up driving in all 3 runs. Swings, doesn't get it. Well, he got a little bit of it, so he's still there. Pitch spinning away out of A.J. Ellis' mitt, and the inning is still alive. 1 ball and 2 strikes. The count to Joey Votto. Hitting cleanup, Todd Frazier, the right-hand hitting third baseman. Anderson ready, and the 1-2 pitch is low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Anderson, in his last 12 starts, going back to the 5th of June, is a break-even 4-4, but he's allowed 2 runs or less 8 of those 12. Votto, meanwhile, pulls one up the middle for the base hit, so a 2-out single will bring up Todd Frazier.
Third baseman, number 21, Todd Frazier.
Votto, a remarkable hitter in the hole, no balls, 2 strikes, and takes a pitch outside the zone and then grounds a single up the middle. Votto at first, and the batter now is Todd Frazier, hitting .260, 28 home runs, 71 runs batted in, and if you add 33 doubles and a triple, you realize he's Mr. Extra Base. So Frazier with Marlon Byrd hitting behind him. Anderson ready and goes to first. Votto, who does not do a lot of running, back to the bag. When he does go, however, he's smart enough to get a good jump, and Votto has stolen 7 out of 9. The pitch to Frazier is swung on. High fly ball into deep right center field. Peterson going to the wall, and this one is in the seats. Todd Frazier driving one into the pavilion, his 29th home run. He now has 73 runs batted in, and just like that, the Reds are out in front 2-0. For Anderson, who was always considered a ground ball pitcher, he has now allowed 12 home runs. So 2-0 in favor of the Reds. No doubt about it, into the Sunshine Club out there in right center. Frazier, Cincinnati boy, drives it out. So Anderson in a hole now. 2-0, and the batter Marlon Byrd, who is late, fouls a pitch away, and the count 0-1. For Frazier, who is expected to hit a lot of home runs, he had 28 coming up to the plate. That's his 29th home run, but it's only the second home run he's hit in August. Ground ball wide of third. Turner is on it, flips it to first, and that's the inning. 3 ground balls. However, Todd Frazier, following the single by Votto, hits a home run into the right center field pavilion, and it's 2-0 Cincinnati. On Mattingly's card, it'll start off with Jimmy Rollins at shortstop, Kike Hernandez at second, Adrian Gonzalez at first, and Justin Turner hitting cleanup at third. Yasiel Puig in right field, Carl Crawford in left, A.J. Ellis behind the plate, Jock Peterson, and followed by Brett Anderson. Numbers make sense. First of all, for Brett Anderson, In the first 15 pitches of the games he's made this year, he's now given up 3 home runs, and that gives David Holmberg something to work on. Big fella out of Port Charlotte, Florida. And the left-hander's a strike to Rollins. 0-1. Jimmy, who's been hitting the ball very, very well, hitting safely 13 of the last 15, has a look at a pitch low, and that evens the count. 1 ball and 1 strike. Left-hander Holmberg right back with a curveball, hit in the air to shallow left. Coming up forward to pick it off is DeJesus. And just like that, 1 away, bottom of the first inning. We can take a look at the Reds defensively. Votto and Phillips, Suarez and Frazier, DeJesus, Hamilton and Bird, Pena behind the plate, and Holmberg on the mound. So 1 away, and here's Kike. Hernandez doing such a great job for the Dodgers wherever they ask him to play. Kike takes inside, ball 1, 1-0. Batting .305, 5 home runs, 15 runs batted in, lashes 1 on the ground, but Frazier backhands it. Bad throw. Votto makes a tag and can't get it. So Todd Frazier comes up with the ball in plenty of time and then makes a poor throw to first base. Frazier now has committed 14 errors at third base. Ball just sailed on him. Votto had to come off the bag, and Kike safely aboard on the error. So Hernandez reaches on the error by Frazier. One moment a hero, the next minute committing an error. Adrian Gonzalez checking in. 1 out, bottom of the first, 2-0 Cincinnati. Holmberg delivers, and the pitch is low, ball 1. Gonzalez last night struck out, flied out, hit the big 3-run home run, and grounded out. Some notes about David Holmberg. 6'3", 225, out of Florida. Originally drafted by the White Sox. Went to the University of Florida. At least he committed, but then went on to sign with the White Sox. The opposition is hitting 152 against him in his first 75 pitches. Left-hander, a high set up around the bill of the cap. The 1-0 pitch, and that's a little low. 2-0 the count. Adrian, 23 home runs, 72 runs batted in. Giant game will start in almost an hour from now, 7:05. That's Gio Gonzalez and Jake Peavy. 2-0 pitch on the way, in for a strike, and the count 2-1. More numbers about Holmberg, going through numbers 3 through 9. He's done very well. Opposition hitting just 182. 2-1. Left-hander ready, back he comes, and it's driven to center. Coming up for it is Billy Hamilton, but he'll have to play it on a bounce. So Adrian Gonzalez follows the error by Frazier with a single to center, and the Dodgers have runners at first and second, 1 out, and Justin Turner coming up. So the Dodgers get a break, an error by Todd Frazier on a routine foul ball, and now here is Turner with 2 on, 1 out, first inning, and the Reds leading 2-1. Turner, who got a base hit on the first pitch he saw coming back off the DL, has 13 home runs, 46 runs batted in. 2-0 Reds, but the Dodgers have 2 on in the first inning. And Turner, ground ball to short, the flip for 1, and they will turn it for 2. So Turner hits into the double play, no runs, 1 hit, 1 error, 1 left. And at the end of an inning, Cincinnati 2 and the Dodgers nothing. Brian Pena, and then the pitcher David Homburg. Nice crowd on hand. Temperature 90 degrees when the game started. If you're sitting in the shade, I'm sure it's reasonably comfortable now. Good folks out in right field hoping for a breath of air. Meanwhile, De Jesus takes a strike and the count 0-1. Ivan De Jesus playing a lot of positions now for Cincinnati. He was always an infielder. Dodgers signed him, and he was a second baseman and a shortstop. He's played a few games in the outfield, and that's where he's playing tonight. 1-1 the count. De Jesus, a chip off the old block. His dad was a wonderful player, had a career of about 15 years. Ground ball to the hole. Nice plug by Hernandez to throw him out. One out, second inning. Brian Pena coming up. Pena in his last 25 at bats, hitting in the 290s, has not homered since middle of July. 13 runs batted in. That'd be the middle of July last year. And a strike. 0-1. One ball and one strike to Brian Pena. The fact that he has not hit a home run since the middle of July is worthy of a footnote. Ball two. It's the fourth longest active homerless streak among major league position players. Who are those who have gone longer? Well, Angel Pagan, for instance, Pete Kozma, and Michael Bourne. Three-one pitch swung on, chopper to short. Rollins sends it across the infield, and we have two down. So despite the fact Brett Anderson gave up a home run to Frazier, he is showing his strength.
Pitcher number 36.
5 outs, all ground balls. Frazier cooling off in the dugout. Home run and then a throwing error. Fastball strike for Holmberg. 0-1 the count. Holmberg, 24 years old. One ball and one strike. Anderson works quickly. Holmberg does the same. Off the plate, ball two. 2-1. Holmberg, an honor student when he was in school, and promptly bangs it. A smothering play by Hernandez to throw him out. TK does it again. Boy, he has just played super wherever they play him, and he refuses to quit anything in his neighborhood. Great play. Down go the Reds at the end of an inning and a half, 2-0 Cincinnati. Inning. David Holmberg coming to the mound, the left-hander following the left-hander John Lamb last night. The 17 straight, most consecutive games by a starting rookie pitcher. The Reds going back to 1914. They did it 5 times, 4 times, but right now 17. The longest streak that we know of. The St. Louis Cardinals had 19 straight rookies back in 1997. John Lamb leaning on the railing in front of the dugout, thinking of what might have been, but his big league career is underway. So David Holmberg, who was able to work his way out of an inning after an error and a base hit, he got Turner to ground into a double play. He'll start off with Yasiel Puig. Ball 1. Yasiel, 9 home runs, 34 runs batted in. Struggling, however. In his last 9 games, he has struck out 10 times and hitting only 170. 2-0. Fouled away. 2-1. Because all ball players, really, when you think about it, should be named Otis, like the elevator man. They're forever going up and down. That's inside. So Holmberg falls behind 3-1 to Yasiel Puig. Dropped in there, off speed. 3-2. His last home run was a high slider, and they have been getting him out with fastballs. And a towering drive to center, hammered into the crack at the wall. It is gone. So Yasiel Puig drives it out, and that makes it 2-1 Cincinnati. So Yasiel Puig, as he has done lately, you can see it looked like either a high slider or a hanging curveball, one or the other. It's been the fastball they've been getting him out with, surprisingly, but he drives this one to the seats. It's 2-1 Reds. And now the pitch to Carl Crawford is low. That pitch that Puig hit for the home run, 83 miles an hour. So it's not the breaking ball that's bothering him at all. Next pitch away. So Crawford up there, 2 balls and no strikes. Last game that Holmberg pitched, he was beaten by a home run by Justin Upton. That's on the hands and pulled foul. 2-1 to count. Final game of the series tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Anthony DeSclafani and Zach Greinke. DeSclafani with a record of 7-7, and Greinke is 12-2. Pitch is lifted foul off third, slicing well back into the crowd. 2 balls and 2 strikes to count. A.J. Ellis on deck. Dodgers now have hit 141 home runs. The Reds 125. Ball 3. Ellis waiting on deck. Full count. And in on the hands for ball 4.
Number 17.
So Crawford at first, nobody out. A.J. Ellis coming up. Ellis hitting .206, 2 home runs, 7 runs batted in. Has hit safely 7 of his last 10. He was out, remember, for a while with the bad knee. Now getting a chance to play, and he's been hitting the ball a bit harder. Ball 1. Holmberg's going to have to turn that around, or he's not going to be around too long. Pitching from behind. Went 3-2 to Puig, 3-2 to Crawford. 1 ball and no strikes. Crawford at first base has only been in 33 games. He does run very well, as you know, and he's stolen 3 out of 4. 1 ball, no strikes. Held on by Votto. And a little slider in for a strike. David with a fastball, good sinking two-seamer, curveball, change, and slider. And bounces that thing all the way to the backstop. So the young left-hander, wild pitches Crawford to second, and the tying run is now in scoring position. Coming into the game, he had the feeling that Homburg was going to have trouble. He had walked 9, struck out 12, so that means he's fighting his control, and he now has immediately walked his 10th man. 2-1 the count. And a little high, so he'll get killed falling behind 3-1, 3-2. Started pitching professionally in 2009. Made it briefly last year, but had a lot of shoulder problems last season. 3-1 to Ellis. Very high, ball 4. So it's not like he's throwing hard. He's just not throwing for strikes.
Number 31, Jock Peterson.
Last year, in April and early May, he was on the DL. He had tendonitis in his shoulder. And then the last week in May into the middle of June, he had a left shoulder sprain. So Jeff Pico, the pitching coach, out there talking to him. And the batter will be Jock Peterson, followed by Brett Anderson.
Let's go, Dodgers.
Jock Peterson hitting .220. 22 home runs, 45 runs batted in, and he's been on base safely 10 of his last 11 games. So Pico walking back to the dugout. 2 on, nobody out. Reds lead 2-1, and the Dodgers trying to change that right now. So Peterson steps in. Crawford and Ellis take their leads. Nobody out. And off the plate, so there he is again behind. 1 ball and no strikes. Kyle Crawford at second, A.J. Ellis at first. And ball 2. Each of his 3 starts for David Homburg, each of the 3, he went 5 innings and allowed 2 runs. So he's got to throw strikes, and right away. 2 balls, no strikes. And gets one. 2-1. From the looks of his pitches, he does not throw hard. John Lamb, who pitched last night, does not throw hard. I don't know if he's hit 91 yet. 2-1. Fastball missed, and that's 88. So I would say young David Homburg's in a lot of trouble unless he can reverse the fortunes immediately. Gave up the home run to Puig. Walked Crawford, walked Ellis, committed a wild pitch, and now he's behind 3-1 to Jock Peterson as Puig looks on. And check swing foul to make it 3-2. More a case of the ball hitting the bat than the other way around. So again, he goes 3-2. Peterson holds up, and the ball hits the end of the bat. Brett Anderson waiting on deck. Anderson has 7 sacrifices, so if Peterson can't advance him, they'll probably ask Brett to do it. 3-2. Fastball lifted into shallow center. Backing out is Phillips. Infield fly rule is called. So Peterson pops it up, and we have 1 down, and Brett Anderson coming up. And I'm sure the Reds now are looking bunt. Anderson has 2 hits, and he has struck out 25 times. So in 38 plate appearances, he has struck out 28. So the chances are certainly he'll try to bunt. We're watching Votto talking to Phillips. Frazier is in on the grass at third. Anderson, no secret, he's going to try to bunt and takes off the plate. So once again, Holmberg behind. 1 out, Dodgers at first and second, 2-1 Cincinnati here in the second inning. The bunt in the air, foul. Over to Jimmy Rollins. 1-1. Anderson checking to see if the bunt is still on. Lorenzo Bundy flashing out the sign. Votto and Frazier, the corners are up. Outfield is shallow. And the 1-1 pitch. And that's high. So Holmberg again behind, 2-1. A tough inning for Brian Price, watching another young pitcher. 2 balls and 1 strike. And got the bunt down. The only play is to first. Brandon Phillips handles it there. So Anderson gets it down and moves the runners up to second and third. 8 sacrifices for Brett, so he can certainly do his job. So Anderson moves them up a notch, and it's up to Jimmy Rollins. 2-1 Reds, 2 outs, second inning. Jimmy flied to left field in the first inning, matching his uniform number, 11 home runs, 35 runs batted in. And ball 1. So he's been behind just about every hitter. Way inside. So David Holmberg gave up the home run to Puig on a 3-2 pitch. Walked Crawford. Then he walked Ellis. Got Peterson to pop up. Got Anderson to sacrifice. And now 2-0 the count to Jimmy Rollins. Fastball whacked, but down the line out of play. "29 pitches in the inning after a brief 10-pitch inning, thanks to a double play in the first inning. Two and one. Line drive, base hit. That's good for 1. They are not going to try Ellis. So scoring is Crawford. That ties it up 2-2. Rollins picks up the RBI, and Kike Hernandez coming up. So Rollins hitting the ball hard, got a high fastball, and drilled it into left field. So Holmberg have to turn things around and throw strikes. or he's not going to make a favorable start tonight. Young left-hander now facing Hernandez. Reached on the throwing error by Todd Frazier and then made a dazzling play on a ball hit by Holmberg. And there he is behind again. 1 ball and no strikes. One and 0 to Kike, hitting .303. Ellis down the line from third. Rollins at first. And a high drive into deep left field. Forget about it. That's gone a long way. Kike Hernandez bombs one, his 6th home run. He has 18 runs batted in, and the Dodgers now turned it completely around and lead 5-2. But for Holmberg, you could see it coming. There is no way you can pitch in the big leagues consistently behind, especially when you can't throw very hard. So Holmberg gives it up. Dodgers hang a high 5, and the Reds bullpen has to get busy. The pitch to Gonzalez, a strike. Kike's last home run was in Pittsburgh on the 9th of August. Breaking ball, strike. So this is the first hitter where Holmberg has actually got the count his way. No balls and 2 strikes. One and 2. Take another look because Kike crushed the ball, got it up about a letter high, and that went way up in the pavilion. I mean, there wasn't any doubt about it making it, but where was it going to land? A little more, I think, than 3/4. Ground ball to Phillips. So there's the 3rd out, but not before 2 home runs by the Dodgers. Yasiel Puig opening it up, and Kike Hernandez closing it up, as the Dodgers with 2 home runs now have 142, and at the end of 2 lead 5-2. The year, Kike Hernandez a letter high fastball for a big bomb, and the Dodgers hang a 5. And for David Holmberg, a brutal inning. He made 37 pitches, behind on every hitter but Adrian Gonzalez. 0-2 the count to Billy Hamilton. Hamilton had a 4-for-4 game the other night. Little roller. Anderson guns it. One away. Five runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers, 2 runs, 2 hits for the Reds. So we're in the 3rd inning, and we've already had 3 home runs. Brandon Phillips tapped out to shortstop in the 1st inning. For the Reds, it's not just a question of giving up as far as the season is concerned. Naturally, they're battling as hard as they can for every game. Ask Todd Frazier, he'll tell you. But what it is, they're really trying to find out about next year. Brian Price not only has a ton of young pitchers this year, they picked several up in trades, 4, for instance, in the deal for Johnny Cueto. So we saw John Lamb last night. But they not only have all the rookie pitchers with the team, they have a whole bunch of good young pitchers in the minor leagues. So their future will be on their decisions what to do with the kids. 2-1 the count. So far, one of the players they talk the most about is a Cuban, Raisel Iglesias. He was signed last year. 2-2. I wonder how the Cuban players feel about the U.S. opening the embassy in Havana. Haven't heard anybody interview any players. That's up the middle. Hernandez, who never gives up, and then has the ball fly out of his hand. Of course, when you're playing second base for Howie Kendrick, you better not give up, because Kendrick's the same way, running everything down. Kike has it come out like a bar of wet soap, and it'll be a base hit. So that'll bring up Eugenio Suarez, the young shortstop. Fastball off the plate. The home run was by Todd Frazier. Everything else hit on the ground. The base hit by Votto and the base hit by Phillips on the ground. So Anderson has his stuff working for sure. That's a strike. 1-1. 66% of the batted balls are on the ground against Brett Anderson. One and two. Zach Cozart was the regular shortstop for Cincinnati. Cozart was hitting around 260. He was injured, and they brought Suarez up, and he's done a wonderful job. Eugenio from Venezuela. And that's strike 3 on the half swing. So Suarez strikes out. And the batter now, Joey Votto.
Number 19, Joey Votto.
Joey Votto is certainly in the top 4 left-hand batters against left-hand pitching. D. Gordon hitting .364. Anthony Rizzo of the Cubs, .343. Joey Votto hitting .316 with 5 home runs against left-hand pitching. Adrian Gonzalez would be 9th, hitting .296 against lefties. Votto singled up the middle. A lot of time. 0-1. Dodgers 5, Reds 2. We're in the top of the 3rd inning. A veteran left-hander, Brett Anderson, and a rookie left-hander, David Holmberg. Big breaking ball for a strike. 0-2. Votto looking that thing right into Ellis' mitt. 1-2 the count. We mentioned about Votto last night. He's a Canadian, so he learned French easily. And then about 4 years ago, he worked with a Spanish tutor 4 or 5 times a week. So by the time he got to spring training, he spoke Spanish pretty well. In fact, he was speaking Spanish well enough, he challenged the relief star Aroldis Chapman to a duel. He would speak Spanish better than Chapman could speak English. The pitcher accepted, but no one says who won. 2-2. Inside, they're going to check. No swing. Take another look as Joey holds up. Big stride, powerful swing, and then he fights the edge of the plate. Right there. All right, 3-2. There goes the runner, and the ball is whacked down the left field line. That's going to roll all the way to the bullpen gate. They are waving Phillips in, and into second base with a double goes Joey Votto. So Votto, who drove in 3 last night, is 2 for 2, doubles in a run. It's now 5-3 in favor of the Dodgers. Votto 2 for 2. Boy, he is a magician with the bat. Goes down to get it. That thing was probably 6 inches from the ground, and yet he's able to whack it down the left field line up against the bullpen gate. So now Todd Frazier, who homered in the first inning, comes up as the potential tying run. And ball 1 to Todd. For Anderson, giving up 2 home runs, well, 1 home run tonight. So that's 12. That's a lot for a ground ball pitcher. 1 ball and no strikes. Change breaking ball. And he's behind 2-0 to Frazier. The extra base man, 33 doubles, a triple, and 29 home runs. 63 extra base hits. Fastball away. Remember, Frazier won the home run hitting contest before the All-Star game. He hit 15. Jock Peterson hit 14. That was a great show. They might let him swing 3-0. And that is off the plate. So Anderson gives up a walk.
Number 9, Marlon Byrd.
And Marlon Byrd, who grounded out, coming up. Jay Bruce hitting just .243. Normally playing right field. Bruce struggling against the left-hander. Went 0 for 4 last night against Alec Wood. And went 1 for 5 in the first game. So Bruce 1 for 9. Sits this one out. Ground foul, 0-1. 5 runs, 4 hits for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 4 hits for the Reds. Marlon Byrd. He's had a tremendous career. He's had to work hard to get it. Kike Hernandez just starting out. You think of Marlon Byrd, 38 years old. A comeback to Anderson, and that'll be that. Oh, look at there. The winged car going way back. That's the Back to the Future car. Remember the movie tonight. And the Dodgers lead the Reds 5-3. Be one of the first 40,000 in attendance. Receive a spray bottle with fan presented by Farmer John. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Bottom of the third, 5-3 in favor of the Dodgers. Justin Turner grounded into a double play in the first inning. Turner had a big year last year against left-handers. He is struggling a bit this year. Case in point, last year Justin hit .323 against left-hand pitching. This year, .222. 1-1. And ball 2. So Homburg had a tough second inning, faced 8 batters, walked 2, gave up a base hit and 2 home runs. That's fouled away. 2-2. Zach Greinke on the mound tomorrow for the Dodgers with a record of 12-2. Zach will face Anthony DeSclafani, who is 7-7. And ball 3. Homburg struggling with his control. He has Puig to contend with next. He's made 52 pitches. And a high fly ball down the right field line. Slicing as she goes fair. Home run for Justin Turner. Turner now has 14 home runs. 47 runs batted in. The Dodgers have hit 3 home runs against the left-hander Homburg. For Justin, his last home run was the 24th of July in New York against the Mets. So Turner is back. So Justin kept it fair just inside the foul pole, back about 8 or 9 rows. And here's Puig. He takes breaking ball. Ball 1. Well, they're not going to monkey around too long, I'm sure, with David Homburg. He's due to bat third next inning, and they're heating up back of him in the bullpen. Slow breaking ball up, so he's behind again. Pedro Villarreal, who made 23 pitches the other night, gets up in the pen. And behind 3-0, so he has to be a little discouraged now. He's walked 2, he's had a wild pitch, he's given up 3 home runs, not to mention the feelings of Brian Price. And a strike. Three balls, 1 strike to Yasiel Puig. 6-3 Dodgers, third inning. And very high. Of course, one of the things you can bet Brian Price and Jeff Pico are looking at as Turner tries to cool off. They want to see how Homburg reacts when things are going sideways. They know how easy it is to pitch when things are going well. But how much give up do you have? So Price wanted to know himself. Checked in with the pen. And the batter is Carl Crawford. Crawford walked in the second inning. Walt Jocketty, who spent a career with St. Louis, is the president of Cincinnati baseball, one of the truly knowledgeable men in the game. And Jocketty's idea was to get as many young pitchers as he could and see what he had. 1 ball and no strike. So for Homburg, behind for the umpteenth time. And there he goes, 2-0. Young fella from Port Charlotte. Doesn't figure to stick around very long tonight unless he does a compete about face. That's a strike. 2-1. Looks easy, doesn't it? Stand on the mound 10 inches high. Throw the ball. Well, you stride at least 3 feet, 4 feet. And throw a strike. Not enough. Crawford playing for Scott Van Slyke. All we got was that Scotty was under the weather. With the pitcher batting 8th in the lineup, Holmberg is due to bat 3rd in the 4th inning. So Villarreal is getting ready in earnest. 2-1. Must be a miserable feeling. You're a rookie, you're trying to impress. You pitched pretty well last 3 games, and you just can't do anything right tonight. Three and one. Three and two. 6 runs, 5 hits for the Dodgers, 2 singles and 3 home runs. 3 runs, 4 hits for the Reds. They have a double and a couple of singles and a home run. We'll watch Puig. He doesn't go on ball 4, and let's see if Price's patience has run out. Yep, here he comes. Yeah, he can just take so much. You know it's important for the left-hander, but he was nowhere in this game. So he gives up a home run, 2 more walks, though he walked 4, and we'll be right back. The 2015 Jeep Cherokee. With an EPA estimated 31 highway MPG, it's the perfect choice. Visit Jeep.com today. 6-3 in favor of the Dodgers, trying to get some more. Pedro Villarreal. He's from Edinburgh, Texas. Went to Howard Junior College. 6'1", 225. He is going to be 28 years old in December. Reds picked him in the 7th round. And Villarreal made an earlier appearance in the series and made 23 pitches and did well. Boy, talking about doing well. The St. Louis Cardinals just beat Miami 6-2 for their 75th win. 75 victories. They are way out in front of everybody. The closest would be Kansas City. They've won 69. But 75 victories for the Cardinals, and we're in the middle of August. Strike to A.J. 0-1. It's only the fourth time in franchise history the Cardinals have reached 75 wins in the first 116 games. In 44 they did it, they won the World Series. 68 they did it, they lost the World Series. 2004 they lost the World Series. But boy, they are high flying again. Line drive, base hit, Hamilton charging. Stopping at third is Puig. So the bases are loaded and nobody out. Dodgers trying to win their 66th game.
Number 31, Chuck Peterson.
So Jock Peterson coming up with the bases loaded, nobody out. We're only in the third inning. And it's 6-3 Dodgers trying to break the game wide open. Villarreal first came up to the Reds 3 years ago. Spent a lot of time going back and forth from Cincinnati to Louisville. So Puig, Crawford, and Ellis all out there. And here's Jock. Big chopper to Phillips. He looked at home. Couldn't possibly have thought of going home. He was way back. So if you're going to try to double up Peterson, you can't look anywhere. You got to feel that ball and get the double play try started. But Brandon been around a long time. Take a look. Ground ball. He charges. He looks at second finally, and gets the force. But that look towards home took the double play away. Puig brings the run in, and the Dodgers lead 7-3. You can bet with Phillips, he was just trying to get more out of the little that he got, the slow ground ball. Anderson will try to bunt, and ball one. He sacrificed in the second inning. The Puig he scored belongs to Holmberg. One ball and no strikes. The bunt foul. 1-1. 7 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 4 hits, 1 error for the Reds. Anderson with Jimmy Rollins on deck. Crawford at third. Ellis giving up, and there's a pitch in front of the plate. The bunt is good, and down to second base goes Peterson. So for Brett Anderson, he now has 9 sacrifices. So Dodgers at second and third. The leadoff man, Jimmy Rollins, flied to left, single to left to drive in a run. And then he was aboard when Kike Hernandez followed with a home run. Giant game is underway. Gio Gonzalez and Jake Peavy up north. Rollins trying to pick somebody up. And a strike. Up north, Hunter Pence misstuds a line drive. It went over his head for a run-scoring double. Bryce Harper scoring from first. Washington leading 1-0. And line foul down the line. So Peterson at second, Crawford at third, 2 out, 2 in, 7-3 Dodgers. Dodgers playing game number 117. Oh and 2 to Rollins. 1 and 2. Dodgers have had men on base in every inning. Error and base hit in the first. Then a couple of walks and 2 home runs and a single in the second. And a home run and a couple of walks and a single here in the third. Yasiel Puig with a home run and a walk has scored twice. Kike Hernandez, a huge home run in the second inning with a man aboard. One and 2 the count to Jimmy Rollins. Foul back. "90-degree weather when the game started. Everybody now in comfortable shade, but the fans are needed. And don't forget tomorrow, that's a great giveaway for tomorrow afternoon's game. You get the bottle full of the water, you have the spray, the fan, and you cool yourself off. Pedro Villarreal picking up for David Holmberg. 1 and 2. And high fastball got him at 94, and that's that. But the Dodgers pick up 2. Justin Turner starts him going in the right direction. Gets a high fastball. He's a little late, and he reaches the right field seats just inside the foul pole. And at the end of 3, 7-3 Dodgers. Is 30 at 5:05, and the first 40,000 fans will receive a pair of Dodger headphones presented by Lexus. For tickets, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Fourth inning, 7-3 in favor of the Dodgers. It'll be Ivan De Jesus, Brian Pena, and then Pedro Villarreal, a pitcher. And a strike to De Jesus. De Jesus from Puerto Rico. In fact, although years apart, De Jesus and Kike Hernandez went to the same school. There was a Puerto Rican baseball academy. Kike and De Jesus. Kike just did the baseball in the academy. There's also a military aspect to it, and Ivan was also a military cadet. 2-2. His father, Ivan, spent 15 years in the big leagues with the Cubs and Phillies. Dodgers signed young Ivan back in 2005. He played here in 2011, 2012, and he's somewhat like a Kike Hernandez. He plays second, he plays short, he plays the outfield, he even played a little first base. And he's aboard with a walk. So the batter will be Brian Pena. Brian Pena grounded to short. Catcher 0 for 1. And ball one. Kind of a long third inning. Anderson gives up a walk and then misses on the first pitch. Ball one. Brian Pena is from Cuba. He was born in Havana, lives in San Jose in Costa Rica. He and his father defected from Cuba. He was a teenager, and he was in a junior baseball tournament in Caracas. And his dad said, "What do you think about defecting?" Brian said, "All right, let's do it." And they did it. They hit at the home of a friend in Venezuela. And right now, ground ball and a good feed, and everybody safe at second. So Rollins goes deep to come up with the ball. Hernandez gesturing to take a look at it, thinking that he had gotten the runner before he dropped the ball. So that's why they're going to look at the review. Big curveball. There's Rollins. There's the high feed. Caught it. And then juggled while in the act of throwing. So that's part of the consideration. That would be the out. And then there's the juggle and the drop. Don Mattingly out there talking to Dana DeMuth. Sure, he's saying he dropped it in the act of throwing. So is he. And in a moment they'll review and we'll get the report. Nice catch, so you think that's the force. Not much you can say when there's an official review. All you do is keep looking at it and see which point sells. Did he drop the ball while in the act of throwing? Had the out already been recorded? If not, the Reds have runners at first and second, nobody out, and a look at the game. It's 7-3 Dodgers. Meanwhile, Brett Anderson continues to throw to A.J. Ellis while we wait for the outcome. That's Dana DeMuth wearing the headset. Dana is the crew chief. He's had a remarkable career, 32 years as a major league umpire, so he's seen it all. He's nodding yes. Talking to New York. And you see, say thank you, thank you. Out. Good call. He definitely lost the ball while in the act of throwing. So DeJesus is erased. Pena is safely aboard on the force play. And Villarreal is coming up to bat. Holmberg, while he was up, lost a base hit on a good play by Hernandez. Bunt foul, 0-1 to count. Villarreal has had 2 at-bats this year. and he has struck out both times. On deck, Billy Hamilton. 7 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 4 hits the Reds. The bunt is missed. 0-2. Jim Riggleman, who was way back when, originally drafted in 1974 by the Dodgers and worked here 2001, 2, 3, and 4. All right, 0-2. Full swing and a miss. For Anderson, that would be his second strikeout. And the batter now, Billy Hamilton.
Billy Hamilton.
Hamilton hit back to the box in the 3rd inning. He has stolen 53 bases, has been caught 7 times. He has 11 bunt singles. Justin Turner playing in on the grass at 3rd. Change up for a strike. Brian Pena, the catcher, at first with 2 out, 4th inning. 7-3 Reds, Dodgers, as the Reds are hitting. 0-2 the count to Billy. Hard to believe that Hamilton could be as successful as he has been. You know, in 1 year in the minors, he stole 155 bases in 1 year. 104 in Bakersfield and another 51 in Pensacola. When he was at Dayton, he stole 103. Ground ball by the mound, coming over to get it, and unable to is Hernandez, backed up by Rollins, but no play. So Hamilton finds a way to get a ground ball single, and it's still on the infield. First, it's going to hit the mound. Hernandez goes to the bag, and it hits the bag, and then it's fielded by Rollins. No play. So you talk about a bouncing single. It hit the mound and second base. So Brandon Phillips coming up. 2 on, 2 out. Phillips grounded out, infield single. He has 8 home runs, 43 runs batted in. And ball 1. Anderson fell on the mound on that base hit up the middle by Hamilton. Make sure he's all right. He is still yet to allow a fly ball, but he did allow the home run to Todd Frazier in the 1st inning. Curve ball grounded to 3rd. Turner the quick way, and that's that. So a walk and a base hit, no runs, 2 left, and at the end of 3 1/2, Dodgers lead 7-3. second inning with 2 men aboard. And I mean, he got a high fastball and almost hit it out of the pavilion. I mean, that's way back up there. Maybe, 5-6 rows from the top. So it was a bomb. Dodgers lead 7-3. We're waiting for Ryan Pena, who had been out on the bases. The catcher puts on the gear, makes it to the plate. Seven runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 5 hits, and 1 error for the Reds. Kike reached on the error and then hit the 3-run home run, batting .308. What a guy to have on the team. Plays shortstop, plays second base, plays center field, play anywhere. Love doing it and hitting .308. A report from up north. Ian Desmond, the shortstop for Washington, hit a long home run to left field. The Washington leading Jake Peavy and the Giants 2-0 behind Gio Gonzalez, who shut down the Dodgers for 8 innings when they were here. 1-1 to Kike Hernandez. Pedro Villarreal picking up the pieces for David Holmberg. Holmberg, the 17th consecutive rookie pitcher going to the mound for the Reds. Back in 1997, the Cardinals had a string of 19 straight rookie pitchers. 2-1. Desclafina and Greinke tomorrow. And ball 3. And a high foul out of play. You know, back in 1965, there was a 29-day stretch where 3 pitchers pitched no-hitters. Well, if you follow Dodger history, 1965, you immediately think of Sandy Koufax. But Dave Moorhead of the Red Sox turned in one, and Jim Maloney, a hard-throwing right-hander, turned in a no-hitter for the Reds. Foul back. When Maloney went to the mound that day to pitch his no-hitter, he couldn't help but think about 2 months earlier he had taken a no-hitter into extra innings against the Mets, only to lose 1-0 on a Johnny Lewis home run in the 11th inning. And there was Big Jim Maloney flirting with another no-hitter and needing extra innings to finish it off again. For Maloney, history would not repeat itself. Leo Cardenas of the Reds hit a solo home run in the top of the 10th, and Maloney held the Cubs hitless to secure the no-hitter. However, it was a different game. He pitched so much better in the game that he lost. Isn't that baseball? 3-2 the count. Fastball fouled away. When he lost to the Mets, Jim Maloney, believe it or not, struck out a franchise record 18 batters, and he lost 1-0. It was totally the other way around. Maloney in his no-hitter stranded 10 base runners, gave up 10 walks and a hit batter, and still got through it all for the no-hitter. And a high fly ball into left field. DeJesus. And we have 1 down here in the 4th inning. So when you get into no-hitters as we do, and you talk about Sandy, naturally he had a masterpiece, the perfect game against Bob Henley and the Cubs. But within 29 days, Dave Moorhead of the Red Sox, Jim Maloney of Cincinnati. Tell you, when you talk about big guys who throw hard, Jim Maloney threw very hard. Here's Gonzalez, singleless out, grounded out, 1 for 2. They load up the right side of the infield. And ball 1. Game not quite an hour and a half, but it's a leisurely pace. Tomorrow, Greinke. And ball 2. Adrian hitting .293, single to center and grounded out. A bitterly disappointed night for David Holmberg, who gave up 7 runs, constantly behind, no control. Turned out to be a disaster for the young left-hander. A drive to left and deep. Watching it go into the seats is DeJesus, and the Dodgers lead 8-3. DeJesus was hoping the ball would hit the wall and come back to him, but no chance. So Gonzalez hits it out. 24 home runs, and the Dodgers just having a ball. 4 home runs. Puig, Hernandez, Turner, and Gonzalez. Kind of a running fastball, and Adrian still able to be strong enough to go the other way and line it into the seats. So the Dodgers lead 8-3 here in the 4th. Turner has hit into a double play and homered. Takes a strike, 0-1. 4 home runs tonight gives the Dodgers 144. Tops in the league. Foul back. Pretty good fastball. 0-2 the count. So the Dodgers 8 runs, 7 hits. 3 runs, 5 hits for Cincinnati. Adrian hits a home run, and then he's on the phone. And ball 1. When the Reds come up in the 5th inning, Suarez, Votto, and Frazier. If anybody gets on, Marlon Byrd. Votto has a single and a double. One and 2. Two balls, 2 strikes. Dodgers trying to put a little pressure on the Giants. Giants trail by 2.5, and they're losing 2-0 up north. Still 2-2. Turner certainly happy to be back, and especially playing at home. 45 home games this year. He's hitting .339. He's hit a half a dozen home runs here. 2 balls, 2 strikes. You look at the Reds and look at their season's work. They've been knocked around by the Cubs. Fly ball to left field. Going back on it is DeJesus, and this one he'll be able to catch. 2 down. The Cubs have beaten Cincinnati 9 of 13. But what's interesting, the Reds, who do not look like that much of a team, have beaten Pittsburgh 9 of 13. Another surprise, the Reds, going head-to-head with a good team, the Washington Nationals, have beaten Washington 5 straight. Cardinals have beaten them 8 out of 12. That kind of figures. 1 ball and no strikes to Yasiel Puig. Homered in the 2nd inning, walked in the 3rd, scored twice, 1 RBI. Yasiel hitting .246. That is Yasiel Puig. He's got something for double figures, 88 in his Cuban uniform. Thumbs up. 2-0. 3-0. Well, you're leading by 5. You have a power hitter who has not really been on a tear. If you're the manager, yeah, you might let him swing 3-0. Three and 1. You never know whether he had the green light. They're only looking for a certain pitch that they can really drive. 3 balls, 1 strike. Fastball line to right center. Slicing, however. So that's that room service line drive. Came right to Marlon Byrd. Dodgers settle for the home run by Adrian Gonzalez. Hits it out to left field for Adrian, joining the club and his 24th home run. And the Dodgers breezing right now, 8-3. Hernandez, Jock Peterson, and Justin Turner audition for the airline industry. Plus, new Galaxy superstar Gio Dos Santos throws out the first pitch, and the first pitch here is a strike. So don't miss Backstage Dodgers, 7 o'clock Thursday, Sportsnet LA. 1 ball and 1 strike. Eugenio Suarez hit back to the box, struck out. One and 2. Two and 2 the count. The Reds have had a long and colorful history in Cincinnati. They were the first professional team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings. Fastball fouled off. Crosley Field in Cincinnati, where left field went uphill. Went uphill to the fence. Instead of having a warning track, the designer thought if the outfielder has to run uphill, he'll know he's getting close to the wall. But some horrendous plays occurred with outfielders running up and running back down that hill. 2 and 2. There was a big laundry back of left field. the bleachers in right field had two names. If the Reds played a day game, the bleachers were the sun field, or at night. 2-2. Nice pitching by Brett Anderson to take care of Suarez. 1 out, 5th inning. It was in Cincinnati, really, where I think Jackie Robinson received his biggest threat, the one that was taken most seriously by everybody. Somebody was going to shoot him. They had sharpshooters in the stands, up on the rooftops. They had sharpshooters up on the laundry back of left field, on the post office down the right field line. I mean, all of a sudden, Crosley Field was an armed camp. One ball and one strike. 1-2. Then, of course, they moved to Riverfront. And Riverfront was really the home of the Big Red Machine. And boy, what games were played there. The Big Red and the Big Blue. Now, Great American Ballpark, comebacker. 2 down. When they were at Crosley Field, Bill DeWitt was then the owner of the Reds. And it was only a grandstand and a rooftop and the upper deck and a roof. And Bill DeWitt, the owner, would walk down the roof to the right field foul line, and he would look up the street to see if there were any cars coming. And only if he thought no more cars, then he'd gesture play ball. Yeah, I mean, in this day and age of 3 million, sure, but not back then. Ball 1. Cincinnati had a marvelous broadcaster named Wade Hoyt, who was pretty famous as a pitcher for the New York Yankees. And the people in Cincinnati, after a while, they always hoped for rain delay, because if they had a rain delay, Wade Hoyt did not send it back to the studio. He would sit there and start telling stories, and the people would hate it when the rain stopped and the game would start. I mean, he was so entertaining. After all, he pitched with Babe Ruth and those great Yankee teams. 1-1. I'm not making this up. I'm really stretching my memory, but it seemed to me Wade Hoyt had a job with a funeral. Sometimes he would pick up a body for delivery and pitch, and then get the body and drive it to New Jersey or whatever. But boy, he was really something. Was you ever in Cincinnati? You have to be pretty on the old side to remember the voice of Jack Pearl, who was a comedian a long, long time ago. Curveball fouled away. Oh, I'm just sitting next to you chatting. It's 8-3 Dodgers, nothing going on. 2-2 to Todd Frazier. 2 down, bases empty, 5th inning. And another foul ball. Todd Frazier, number 1, piling up all his extra base hits. Josh Hamilton of Toronto behind him. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Ball 3. Waiting on deck, Marlon Byrd. Off speed, a chopper, backing up Turner for the hop. Low throw, gets on by Gonzalez. Anytime an infielder backs up, somebody's going to pay the price. And Turner backed up to get the hop. Now he's throwing off his heels, and he doesn't get much of a throw. Kind of threw sidearm, sinker, and Gonzalez couldn't backhand it. So that should be an error. Frazier aboard on the throwing error charge to Justin Turner. And here's Marlon Byrd. Foul ball. By the way, thanks to Boyd Robinson, he looked it up quickly because I was really reaching. Hoyt was known in Cincinnati and with the Yankees as the Merry Mortician. When he was not playing baseball, he spent days working as a funeral director and nights appearing in vaudeville. He was something. As a vaudevillian, they said that Wade Hoyt was a well-known performer, along with people like Jack Benny, Jimmy Durante, and George Burns. 1-1. And a high fly ball. Peterson is there. It's playable. All right. No runs, no hits, an error, a man left. At the end of 4.5 innings, 8-3 Dodgers. By your Southern California Toyota dealers. Now at Toyota's annual clearance event, get amazing deals on every new Toyota. Bottom of the 5th inning, 8-3 favor of the Dodgers. Carl Crawford will start it off, then A.J. Ellis and Jock Peterson. And Pedro Villarreal probably working his last inning. They're moving around now in the Reds bullpen. Crawford has walked twice, scored a run, and a strike. Carl hitting .272. Line drive, base hit into right field. So that'll bring up A.J. Ellis, who has walked, scored a run on the home run by Hernandez, and singled to center in the 3rd inning. A.J. perking up a bit, hitting .214. 2 home runs, 7 runs batted in. And first ball popped up back to first down the line. Phillips angling over. That's a bad play by Joey Votto. Phillips had a much better angle, but Joey insisted on trying to make the play. You can see, look how tough Votto is trying to make it, and there's Phillips. I mean, he's got nothing to do but get 2 hands on that ball. So for A.J. Ellis, he gets a big break. Phillips denied a putout. Votto probably feels a little embarrassed. And an 0-1 count to A.J. Ellis. Peterson on deck. Fastball missed. 1 ball, 1 strike. Interesting, we were doing some spots earlier. They'll be seen on Sportsnet. You know, you give a date and then you talk about whatever took place on that. That's a foul ball. And there must be 4 or 5 where you talk about the Dodger reliever. And you would finish up by saying, and Charlie Huff pitched the last 3 innings for the victory. Or Tom Niedenfuer pitched the last 3 innings for the victory. Or Eric Gagne pitched the last 3 innings for the victory. Is there a pitcher alive who will pitch the last 3 innings for a victory today? No way. Meanwhile, it's still Washington 2-0 over the Giants behind Gio Gonzalez. 2-2 the count. A.J. Ellis, Jock Peterson on deck. 8 runs, 8 hits, 1 error for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 5 hits, 1 error for the Reds. Dodgers are 65-51. The Reds are 51-63. Reds are 14 games under 500 on the road. Against the Western Division, the Reds are 7-14. Against the Central, the Dodgers will be 10-14. 2-2. Chased a bad ball down and away. So Ellis strikes out, 1 away, and Jock Peterson coming up.
Center fielder, Jock Peterson.
Jock Peterson popped up, hit into a force play. Tomorrow, the Dodgers finish up with the Reds at home. Desclafina and Greinke. Dodgers then go on the road in the first series, a brief 2-game series in Oakland on the 18th and the 19th. Now, with Greinke pitching tomorrow, Kershaw will pitch on Tuesday, but the A's are not sure if Sonny Gray can make his start. He's had stiffness in the back, worked out. So we'll have to wait and see about Clayton. Will he go up against Sonny Gray in Oakland? 0-1 to young Jock. Off the plate. 1-1. Eight runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 5 hits for the Reds. Carl Crawford at first, 1 away. Game started in 90-degree heat, and I think it's had a lot to do with the play. 1-2. It's interesting when the people from Cincinnati, the writers, broadcasters, talk about how hot it is in Los Angeles. I mean, for all the years we went to Cincinnati in the heat, humidity, thunderstorms. Now, and the thing they talk about, they say, wow, it's not only hot, it's humidity. That's L.A. today. We're in the 5th inning. 8-3 Dodgers. Drive to dead center. Going back on the ball is Hamilton, and makes the catch on the track. So 2 down, and Brett Anderson coming up. Peterson hits it hard and deep, but an out.
Pitcher Brett Anderson.
Anderson has sacrificed twice. A good weapon for him. He has 9 sacrifices, but he has 2 outs, so he'll be hacking away. Unless he tries to bunt. Frazier very deep and way wide of the bag at third. And a high fly ball down the line. DeJesus coming over, and that'll be that. No runs, 1 hit, man left. The end of 5, 8-3 Dodgers. Dodgers honor Tommy Lasorda by retiring number 2. Tommy managed the Dodgers for 20 years. He won 8 division titles, 4 pennants, and 2 World Series. And of course, no one who met Tommy at any time will ever forget him, and especially during those years when he was the manager. You talk about wearing your heart on your sleeve. That had to be invented by my good pal Tommy Lasorda. Let's go back to this one. 8-3 as we look up at those championships in '81 and '88 with Tommy at the helm. So low key in the dressing room when the celebration. Tommy very calm, stood there while everybody. Yeah, sure. There he is. Thomas Charles Lasorda. Well deserved and a good sketch. Meanwhile, 6th inning, Ivan DeJesus will lead it off. The left fielder has grounded out and walked. 0 for 1. Foul back. Well, some noise up north at AT&T Park. Gio Gonzalez walked Jake Peavy, the pitcher, to load the bases with nobody out. Steve McCaddy, the pitching coach, came out and was ejected for arguing balls and strikes. And then disaster for the Nationals. Gregor Blanco singled in 1 run. Matt Duffy, who's playing sensational third base for the Giants, doubled in 3 more. So the Giants have turned it around and now lead 4-2 in the 3rd inning. Ground ball to Rollins. Jimmy shoots him down, 1 away. In the bullpen, Jimmy Garcia begins to loosen up. Anderson has reached 96 pitches. So Yimmy's getting ready. 1 out. In looking at your scorebook, you might notice it is Anderson at his best. 1 fly ball. Except in the first inning when he gave up the home run. But otherwise, 1 fly ball. Brian Pena, the hitter, a strike. Pena grounded to short, hit into a force play. 0-1 the count. 1-1. Ground ball into the hole by the diving Hernandez. So Pena, a base hit to right field. The last hit had been Votto's double back in the 3rd. So Jay Bruce will be coming up to bat for Villarreal. Left-hand hitting right fielder.
Number 32, Jay Bruce.
Jay Bruce has 18 home runs, 64 runs batted in. Last night he went 0 for 4, could not hit a ball out of the infield. Slow breaking ball for a strike. Bruce in game 1 was 1 for 5, so he is 1 for 9 as he pinch hits. 0-2. More action up north. Matt Duffy just scored on a single by Brandon Belt, and the Giants now lead Washington 5-2. Washington has lost 11 of 15. They've scored 6 runs during a 4-game losing streak, and the Giants very tough at home. Ground ball to Gonzalez. He'll go for 1. The return throw, and that'll do it. So Bruce 1 for 10 in the series. No runs ahead, a man left. The end is 5.5, 8-3 Dodgers. Saturday, August 29th at 6:10, Dodgers and Cubs, and pick up your Oral Hershiser pin, number 6 in the Cy Young Pin Collector Series, presented by 76. For more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Ryan Matthews, who appeared earlier in the series. Matthews appeared in the 6th inning of Game 1, made 17 pitches. Now he is brought back in to follow Holmberg and Villarreal. So Ryan trying to keep the Dodgers quiet, and that's been pretty tough tonight. 8 runs, 8 hits, 4 home runs. Ryan spells the last name, although it's pronounced Matthews. It's Heus. He's from Elk Grove, California. Went to Sacramento Community College and was originally drafted by the Colorado Rockies. He was given a scholarship to Arizona State, an option that he would take in the fall of 2004 if he didn't turn pro, but instead he signed with the Rockies. Ryan, in January of 2015, signed with the Angels. Now he's greeted by Jimmy Rollins with a line drive single to right.
Second baseman, number 14, Kike.
So here comes Kike Hernandez. Hernandez, a monstrous home run on a high fastball up around the letters. And boy, did he almost hit it over the pavilion. Up there a good, 4 or 5 rows from the top. Dodgers broke the game wide open with 5 in the second, 2 in the third, and 1 in the fourth. Reds had taken a 2-0 lead in the first inning. And ball 1. Holmberg, Villarreal, and Matthews. Kike batting .306. Up the middle, Phillips, a quick feed, and they get the double play. So Hernandez bangs into 2, just like that. 2 out in the 6th. Adrian Gonzalez coming up. Back in the 4th inning, Adrian came up, got a low pitch away, and was able to be strong enough to hit it a line drive home run into the left field stand. Adrian, 24 home runs, 73 runs batted in. And ball 1. Watching the Giants come from behind to take the lead against Washington. If there was ever a team before the start of the season where everybody said, well, we're not sure who's going to win the Central, we're not sure who's going to win here, we're going to win there. But in the National League, the winners in their division, a cinch. It will be the Washington Nationals. Well, not so. They're 4.5 back of the Mets, and they are being pushed around by the Giants. Yimi Garcia up again in the Dodger bullpen. 8-3 Dodgers. I think they had a group of 38 writers, and they were selecting whom they thought would win divisions. All 38 picked Washington to win their division. 1-2. 2-2. So the Giants have won 11 of the last 13 at home. Washington has lost 11 of 15. Bryce Harper, by the way, who hit 3 home runs last year in the division series against the Giants, is hitting .533 against them this year. Round foul. In fact, Bryce Harper is the first player in the National League to reach 30 home runs this year. First left-hand hitter since Boog Powell way back in 1964 to have 30 home runs at the age of 22 or younger. 2-2. Ground ball, the middleman, that would be Phillips, and that'll be that. So a base hit, double play, ground ball. The inning is over, and at the end of 6, 8-3 Dodgers, and here comes Yimi Garcia. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Choose Nissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BlueCrew for free entry. Seventh inning, 8-3 Dodgers. Yimi Garcia will pick up the pitching after Brett Anderson turned in a nice, crisp sixth inning. He allowed just one fly ball, gave up a home run, admittedly, in the first inning, but otherwise he was very much on his game. So Garcia trying to get some outs now. By the way, we were talking about Washington struggling in San Francisco, 4.5 back of the New York Mets. Well, the Mets lost today in 14 innings. Pirates beat the Mets 5-3. But they're still 4.5 in front of Washington. And ball one to Billy Hamilton. With his speed and his ability to get the bunt down, you have to bring up the corners. The Turner's on the grass. Gonzalez almost even with the bag at first. Ball two. For Brett Anderson, great night. He made 103 pitches. He went a strong 6, and he got 14 ground balls, which is very much Brett Anderson at his best. 2-0 to Billy Hamilton. Right, 2-1. Hamilton hit a home run the other night. He has 4. 27 runs batted in. And popped up. Rollins going out. Crawford coming in. Rollins. One out in the 7th. Brandon Phillips coming up. Phillips grounded to short. Singled up the middle. Scored a run. Hit into a force play. He was 1 for 4 last night. 2 for 5 in the first game. Hitting .289. Eugenio Suarez, the shortstop, on deck. Ball one. Cardinals won their 75th. Not that it's very important, but should the Reds lose, they would be 23.5 games behind St. Louis. Foul back. Good fastball. 1-1. I remember talking some old timers many years ago about a bad year. You know, you have a team that has a bad year. And I was asking people, what's the worst year you ever heard of a team having? Ball two, 2-1. I'm not sure what year it was, but they told me the Toledo Mud Hens, one year. Toledo Mud Hens were mathematically eliminated by the All-Star game, and the home ballpark was condemned. They had to play the rest of the season on the road. That, so far, is the worst team I've ever heard of. 2-2. Eight runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 6 hits for the Cardinals, for the Cincinnati. 2-2. Anthony Desclafina tomorrow night at tomorrow afternoon really against Zach Greinke. Dodgers then will spend the night at home, and Monday push out to go to Oakland, Houston, and back to Cincinnati. When the Dodgers come home, it's a brief but a terrific homestand. They'll come in and play 3 with the Cubs, and of course the Cubs are playing very well of late. They've won 8 in a row, trying to become a wild card team. And then 3 big games with the Giants. 31st of August, September 1 and 2. So a good fastball takes care of Brandon Phillips. Big grin on his face. Not quite sure why. So 2 out. Eugenio Suarez hit back to the box and struck out twice. And a fly ball to center. Peterson has this on the radar screen. And at the end of 6.5 innings, 8-3 Dodgers. Eight to 3 Dodgers, bottom of the 7th inning. It'll be Justin Turner, Yasiel Puig, and Carl Crawford on a night that has seen the Dodgers hit 4 home runs. Kike Hernandez, Yasiel Puig, Justin Turner, and Adrian Gonzalez. And ball 1. Last we heard, Giants was still winning 5-2, middle of their game. 1 ball and no strikes. And it is now 6-2 Giants. 1 ball, 1 strike. So the Washington Nationals really gone through a bad period. They're on their way to losing 5 straight, 8 out of 11. They'll be 8 games under 500 on the road. Not nearly the year everybody thought they would have. But it's baseball. 1-1. Line drive right at Frazier. So Turner a tough out. Lines out to go 1 for 4. Yasiel Puig homered, walked, and lined out to right. Yasiel 10 home runs, 35 runs batted in. It's been Holmberg, Villarreal, and now Matthews. And the Dodgers, Anderson and Garcia. Today at Fenway Park was a rare day indeed in the life of a good starting pitcher. 1 ball and no strikes. Foul back. Now I'm going to give you that starting pitcher's line. He worked 2 1/3 innings. He gave up 12 hits, 10 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, 3 home runs in 2 1/3 innings. Who do you think the pitcher was? Who got clobbered? Felix Hernandez of the Mariners. Red Sox won that game 22-10. Of course, one of the worst games in the history of the Cincinnati Reds would be a game at Ebbets Field in 1952, where the Dodgers scored 12 runs in the first inning. Went on to win, I think it was 19-2. There's a hopper into right field. The Puig jammed, but he is so strong, and a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and he's still able to hit it the other way.
Fielder number 3, Carl Crawford.
The Puig 2 for 3 with a walk. There's the base hit. And now Carl Crawford. Crawford got a chance to play despite the fact there was a left-handed starting pitcher. Scott Van Slyke wasn't feeling well, and Crawford has walked a couple and singled a right. Scored a run. And ball 1. When the Reds come up in the 8th inning, they'll have Joey Votto, Todd Frazier, and Marlon Byrd. One and 0. Sprayed foul. 1 ball, 1 strike. Dodgers 8 runs and 10 hits now. Reds scored 2 in the first, 1 in the third, but they haven't been heard from since. And there goes Puig, the pitch in the dirt, and Yasiel steals it easily. For Yasiel Puig to pick up a stolen base, he is now 2 for 4. One out, 2 balls, 1 strike. On deck, A.J. Ellis. Two and 2. A.J. just patiently waiting. Crawford trying to keep the inning alive and pick up Puig. Fastball hit off the body of Matthews. Picks it up, throws high, pulling Votto off the bag. Puig takes third. And Matthews is furious. Thought he had blocked it and made the play, but hurried to throw. Now he goes after it. And hurriedly almost threw it away. Votto saved it. So that'll go as a base hit. That would be 11 hits for the Dodgers. 2 hits off Matthews here in the 7th inning. And A.J. Ellis Walk, fly to center. Walk, single to center, and struck out. Hitting behind him, Jock Peterson. And ball one. Holmberg, Villarreal, and Matthews. Dodgers with Anderson and Garcia. Anderson with a chance to establish his books and get to the 500 mark. He'd be 7-7. 1 ball and no strikes. Foul back. In the Dodger bullpen, Chris Hatcher begins to loosen up. Chris, who was down at Oklahoma City, called back up. Juan Nicasio on the DL. Joel Peralta on the DL. So the Dodgers did use a strong right arm. Last time Hatcher was in a game was the middle of June, 2 months ago. Ground ball to short. The feed for 1. They turn for 2, and that's the inning. No runs, 2 hits, 1 left. And at the end of 7, 8-3 Dodgers. Started a rookie left-handed David Holmberg. It certainly was not his night, and it certainly was Fred Anderson's night. Put it all together, Dodgers leading 8-3. There was a little noise in the first inning. Home run by Todd Frazier, but the Dodgers have overwhelmed the Reds with 4 home runs, and the big one, the home runs by Kike, a 3-run job. And the Dodgers breezing 8-3, and Yimi Garcia ready to work his second inning. As we go to the 8th, it'll be Votto, Frazier, and Bird. So here's Joey. Votto from Canada. He was the MVP for the Cincinnati Reds back in 2010, the 3rd Canadian to win that award. Larry Walker, Justin Moreau, and Joey. Oh, and 1. And fly ball to left field. Crawford had to come a long way. 1 down. The paid attendance tonight, 46,807. 46,807.
21, Todd Frazier.
The Reds have 1 hit in the 6th inning. The hit before that in the 4th. Frazier started them off in the right direction. In the first inning with 2 out, Votto singled, and Frazier hit a home run. And it was 2-0 Reds. But it's been all Dodgers ever since they scored 5 in the bottom of the second inning. Foul ball up above us, 0-1. Todd Frazier, normally it's the player who gets the honor, but Todd Frazier received the honor of having his mom and dad named as the Little League Parents of the Year. Little slider in there, off speed, 0-2. Frazier, 29 home runs, 73 runs batted in, and hammers it to left. Here comes Crawford to play it on a bounce. So Frazier has a walk, a single, and a 2-run home run. Be sure to follow the Dodgers all season with MLB.com at bat. That's the #1 app for live baseball. It's up to the moment, any moment, with in-game highlights, etc. So you can get MLB.com at bat for your smartphone or your tablet. Jimmy Garcia wants a new ball to work with. Plate umpire Dana DeMuth obliges. We're in the 8th, 1 out. Marlon Byrd grounded to third, hit back to the box, fly to center. And slapped foul. Byrd has 19 home runs, 42 runs batted in. For Marlon Byrd, it has been a long, full life as a major league ball player. He'll be 38 the end of the month. 1 ball and 1 strike. From Boynton Beach, Florida. He lives up in La Jolla and originally a 10th round pick by the Phillies. J.P. Howell warming up in the Dodger bullpen. Jumbo Diaz warming up in the Cincinnati pen. Line drive to Hernandez, back to first, double play. 4-3 double play. Frazier erased at second base. No runs, 1 hit, nobody left. And at the end of 7.5, 8-3 Dodgers. Tweet your photo for a chance to be shown in an upcoming broadcast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Bottom of the 8th inning with the Dodgers leading 8-3. A big lead and a big man trying to keep them to 5. And that would be Jumbo Diaz. It's interesting. You could go all over the place to find out Jumbo's real name, and you can't find it. What happened was, way back in the days, he was originally signed by the Dodgers. In those days, back at Vero Beach, and beforehand there were two Jose Diaz. And it was Jose, and they would always have the wrong one show up at the right time. And then one day, without thinking, somebody said, "You're Jose, you're Jumbo." And from then on, they wouldn't call him Jose, they'd call him Jumbo. And the next thing you know, his first name disappeared, almost. Well, here he is. He's big, as you can tell, 6'4", 275. At one time, he weighed 347 pounds. That would be at the end of the 2013 season. And he got his weight down from 347 to 278. And he's about 275 right now. Jonathan Broxton is probably right up there. I mentioned last night about a reliever that the New York Giants had by the name of Walter Jumbo Brown, and he was 295. Anyway, here's Jock Peterson, and Alex Guerrero is out on deck. 0-1. Jock Peterson popped up, hit into a force play, fly to center, 0 for 3. That's off the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. J.P. Howell stopped throwing. Chris Hatcher is back up again. Here's the 1-1 pitch. Jimmy Garcia had a nice 2 innings. Made 20 pitches. Officially, Brian Hagan looks it up. Jonathan Broxton is now listed at 305 pounds. 2-1. Fastball, chopper, backhanded by Phillips, off balance throw. Good stretch by Votto. Put it all together, and Peterson grounds out. 1 away, and now Alex Guerrero batting for Jimmy Garcia.
Hitting for the Dodgers, number 7, Alex Guerrero.
Don't forget, tomorrow at 1:10, Anthony Desclafina with a record of 7-7, and Zach Greinke with a record of 12-2. They'll be going after each other tomorrow. Final game of the homestand. What's new up north? Haven't heard recently. Last we heard, it was 6-2 in favor of the Giants. 0-1 to Alex Guerrero. Guerrero hitting .236. He has 8 hits, including 3 home runs, as a right-handed batter. No balls and 1 strike. Looked like a slider, down and away, no swing. 1-1. When the Reds come up in the 9th inning, DeJesus, Pena, and the pitcher spot. Giants are winning 7-2 over Washington, bottom of the 5th inning, and Hatcher's getting ready for the 9th inning. Fouled away. 1-2 to Alex Guerrero. Jimmy Rollins on deck. We were talking a little while ago. It's been pretty quiet. I think the heat has had a lot to do. Not much going on since back in the 4th inning, really. Talking about one of the worst games Cincinnati ever had play. Fly ball down the line. That's going to be trouble. It'll drop. Guerrero will hold on with a fly ball single. Fly ball to you and me. Butter and eggs to him. And the batter will be Jimmy Rollins.
Jimmy Rollins.
Anyway, one of the worst games I think Cincinnati was ever involved in, back in May of 1952, Dodgers scored 12 runs. I think it was in the first inning. Went on to beat Cincinnati 19-1. Chris Van Kuyk pitched that game and won it for the Dodgers. And the shock, because he was such a star pitcher, the losing pitcher for the Reds in that nightmare game for them, Ewell Blackwell, one of the most feared pitchers who ever played the game. That's in the dirt. Guerrero's a second. A good throw. Got him. What a nice play by Brian Pena. So Guerrero is erased, trying to advance on what looked like to him a wild pitch. A great recovery by Pena. Juarez right there for the tag. So 2 out in the 8th inning. Jimmy Rollins at the plate, 1 ball and no strikes. Off the plate, ball 1. Rollins now has his average up to 227. Boy, he's been playing super. Ball 3. Kike Hernandez waiting on deck. 3-0 to Jimmy. And fastball down the pipe at 97. By the way, on ball 4 to Rollins, with the Dodgers pitching Greinke tomorrow in San Francisco. Tomorrow's game, Joe Ross for Washington against Madison Bumgarner. Joe Ross, remember, very impressive when he pitched here, the younger brother of Tyson Ross of San Diego. So here's Hernandez, reached on an error, hit a big 3-run home run, flied to left, hit into a double play, foul back, 0-1. Boy, he got a pitch up around the letters in the 2nd inning, and he just hit it a mile. Well, now the Giants have broken that game wide open. Giants 9, Washington 2 in the 5th inning. Washington in complete disarray. And a boomer to right center field. On his horse to pick it off is Marlon Byrd. So no runs and 1 hit at the end of 8. It is 8-3, and here comes Chris Hatcher. Welcome back. brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Shave time, shave money. And by Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. FlexAlert.org. Ninth inning, 8-3 Dodgers, and Chris Hatcher returning to the Dodgers after being sent back to Oklahoma City. Chris from Kinston, North Carolina, originally signed with the Marlins. 30 years old, 6'2", 205-pounder. Made his debut as a catcher in the big leagues, and 1 year later came back as a pitcher in the big leagues. First pitcher to do that in over 75 years. He'll be facing Ivan DeJesus. Strike. DeJesus grounded out twice and walked, playing left field. Then Brian Pena, the catcher. And then the Diaz will give way to a pinch hitter. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fastball fouled away. Good fastball, too. 96. Just off the plate. 2-2. Reds got 2 in the first inning. Second inning, Dodgers come back with 5. Reds got 1 in the third. Dodgers came back with 2. Added 1 more, and that's it. Been no scoring since the Dodgers scored in the 4th inning. So a long night for DeJesus. Down he goes, 1 out. Brian Pena has grounded to short, hit into a force play, and single to right. Dodgers put on quite a show tonight. 8 runs, including 4 home runs. Had at least 1 hit in every inning to give him a dozen. And that's in there. 1 ball and 1 strike. Pena looks at his third base coach and then grins, unless it's somebody in the Dodger dugout giving him the needle. Little roller to Kike. Two down in the 9th inning. 8 runs, 12 hits for the Dodgers.
And the
former Dodger.
Number 55,
and
Skip Schumacher.
Skip Schumacher coming up. Schumacher appeared as a pinch hitter in the first game and grounded to first. 0-1. Batting for Jumbo Diaz. Topper to third. Justin makes the play. And that was a pretty easy victory for the Dodgers, as the Reds just could not do anything really after scoring in the 3rd inning. 10 pitches for Chris Hatcher to retire the side. Dodgers win at 8-3. Not much pressure on the Giants. They're winning 9-2. Player of the game was certainly Kike Hernandez.